Hello, this tutorial is for the flower square which appears in the frosted pearl blanket in one of the strips of squares. It is made up of a little flower in the centre with 12 popcorn stitch petals, and then the rest of the square is one colour done in the normal granny stitch that we use throughout the pattern. For this one I'm going to just work with odds and ends I have left. So the colours may not correspond to any in the pattern. Don't think that matters. I've started with a chain 4, which is my preferred way of starting, although many of you might like to use the magic ring technique. But anyway, I've chained 4 and I've slip stitched into the first chain to form a ring. I'm now going to make 12 double crochet stitches into the centre hole of this circle. I'm not doing any chaining to start, I'm just going to make the first stitch and continue from there. So double crochet is probably the simplest of the crochet stitches. You don't have to yarn over it at this point. You just insert your hook into the centre hole, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through the 2 loops, and insert the hook, pull up the loop, yarn over and pull through the 2 loops. So you would work round making 12 of these double crochet stitches into the circle. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I'm just, as I always do, just to make sure I count that I have that done the right number. So you can count the top of the stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's fine. You maybe have to pull it slightly to find your first stitch, but just put your hook into the top of the first stitch and pull through your yarn to finish off the circle. That's all we're going to use with this colour, so I'm going to cut that and pull through to finish off. This has got quite a large circle in the middle, but we're going to pull that when we come to sew in the ends. You'll pull that really nice and tightly and close up that centre circle, centre hole. So now I'm going to show you how to make the popcorn stitch petals which go around the flower, and I've attached my cream yarn to the top of one of the double crochet stitches from the previous round, and I'm going to work into this stitch to make the petal. So what I do is I chain 2 and then put 2 treble stitches into that same stitch, which starts to form the petal. But to get it into a good petal shape, what you want to do is to open this loop up a little bit and take your hook out. Just make it a little bit bigger so it doesn't disappear. And then I'm going to count back 1, 2, 3, which takes me to the top of my first chain 2, and I'm going to put my hook in there. Slightly trickier when it's just the chain 2. Later on it gets easier. And then I'm going to put that loop back onto my hook and pull it through. And that is the popcorn stitch, and you can see it's made it into a nice petal shape. Finish it off by doing a chain 1, and then we can move on and do the next one. And it's going to be right into the very next stitch because we've got 12 petals to make. So we're going to do 3 treble stitches in this stitch, open up that loop and take out your hook. Count back 1, 2, 3. Put your hook into the top of that first treble and pull through the loop. And that is your second petal. Then chain 1 and the third one. 3 trebles into the very next stitch. And take the loop out, put your hook in, third one along, and pull through the loop. And finish off with a chain 1. Now that's 3 petals made. I'm going to go on and go right round the square, making the rest of the petals, so there'll be 12 in total. So make sure you work into every single one of these stitches, and then when you get to the end and you've finished your last stitch with the chain 1, just slip stitch into the top of that chain 2 where you started to fasten off. So I'll see you when we get back to this point. So there we have the 12 petals made for the flower, and at the moment they don't look particularly like petals because it's packed quite tightly, but once we put the next colour in, it'll start to separate them and it will begin to look more like a flower. So at this point we didn't turn between the first round and the second round, but this time we're going to turn and start to square off this circle to make the granny square. So I'm taking my third colour and attaching it to, instead of a top of a stitch, I'm going to peel apart between these 2 petals and just put your hook in between any of the 2 petals, in fact, and attach your yarn as normal. And we're going to start off by making the first half of the first corner, which we're, squaring off this circle, as I said. So I'm going to, this time, chain 3. And the reason we're chaining 3 is because we're going to make the corner stitches in this round only double treble. So I'm going to yarn over twice, put my hook in the same space, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, and that's your double treble stitch. Now, as I said, this is just half of the corner, so I'm going to continue along and find my next space, and we're back to working with treble stitch, and we're going to put 2 treble stitches into that space, and then 2 treble stitches into the next space, and that's us ready to make the next corner. So I'm going to wrap twice round the hook, put my hook in, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And we're going to make 2 double trebles and then chain 2 and 2 more double trebles into that same corner space. Twice. And then down the next side, or we're creating a side, putting 2 trebles into each of the next 2 spaces. And then back to making a corner. So it's a double treble again. And chain 2 and double treble. So you work around in that way, making 2 double trebles, chain 2 double trebles in the next corner, and I'll work round and I'll show you what happens when we get back to the beginning. So I've worked round all the 4 sides of this square and I'm back to where I started. I've just done my 2 groups of 2 trebles, and now I just need to finish off that very first corner with 1, 2 double trebles and chain 2. And then you just need to look for the very top of your first chain 3, put your hook in and pull the yarn through. Now we're not going to cut this because all the rest of this square is worked in this colour. And the subsequent rows that go around the square are just treble stitch. We don't need to put double treble into the corners. We just needed to do that in order to create the corner in the first of the rounds. So I'm going to chain 2 and then turn it. And you'll see that your chain 2 has landed in the extreme right hand side of this corner. So I'm going to make a complete corner by treble 1, chain 2 and treble 2 into this corner. And then all I need to do is to work around the square, making treble 2 in each of the spaces along each side. In this round there are 3 spaces along each side, and then treble 2, chain 2, treble 2 in the corner, and so on all the way until you get back to the beginning. So I'm going to work around doing that, and I'll see you when I get to this point here. So I'm back now. I've worked all the way around with my treble 2, chain 2, treble 2 in each corner, and I'm back to where I started. Now, because you'll remember we had put the first chain 2 in the extreme right hand corner of that first corner and then completed the corner, we don't need to do anything into that corner now. We just need to find the top of the first chain 2 and slip stitch. And that is round number 4 complete. 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah. So now we're going to start number 5. We've got 2 more rounds to do, a 5 and a 6. And I'll show you how we start round 5, and then I'll work on and do round 6 before I come back to the video. So I'm going to chain 2 again, and I'm going to turn it. Now this is the interesting part. Because we have moved on to a slightly different part of the square when we turned, we're not actually, the corner is actually behind us now. So I'm going to treat this first chain 2 not as part of the corner, but as part of the first space after the corner. So the chain 2 corresponds as the first treble, and then I'm going to treble 1 into that space. Then I'm going to work all the way around and finish off with a complete corner, treble 2, chain 2, treble 2 in here, and slip stitch to the top of that chain 2. So I'll work around and I'll see you when I get to the end of the round. And that's round 5 done. And I've done my last corner in its complete form, and now I just need to slip stitch to the top of the first chain 2, and that is the round. So round 6 is exactly the same, and I'm going to chain 2 and turn it. And you can see when I turn it that the first space beside the chain 2 is this space immediately before, not after, because we've turned it before the corner. So I'm going to put my treble 1 into that space, and then I can work this corner and work all the way around and back to this point here. And that's all you need to do to finish off the popcorn flower square. I'm going to put that one to one side and bring this one back again for a minute, because I want to show you the look of it on the two sides. Normally, as you will have realised when you've been making all the other squares, the last round that we do is on the reverse side when we call it the front of the square. For this one, I think I prefer the look of the flower this way round, which means that just for this strip alone, I would be joining it with the round 6 being on the right side and the right side of the joining stitch. If I turn it over, you're actually seeing the back of the stitch, and you may think I quite like that too, with these little stitches showing, but overall I prefer the look of it this way. So that's why I am suggesting in the pattern that you use the front of the square with the round 6 being on the right side. And that's the popcorn flower square.